Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well and having a fantastic week. Today's video is part 2 of common dangers for pet parrots in your household. Now I made part 1 quite a long time ago actually. I was still filming on my iPhone, but now I have a camera, so hopefully the quality is a little bit better, but all the information is still relevant. It's all completely up to date and relevant as to what is and isn't safe in your household. But there are so many different things that are dangerous to birds, and I said I was going to make a part 2. Here we are, it's part 2. If you think I've missed anything, then it might be in part 1, so I'm going to leave a card up the top, a link at the end, link in the description, so make sure you go and check that out as well. And also, I looked at my analytics the other day, and only 10% of people who watch my videos are subscribed. So if you enjoy parrot content, it'll be incredible if you could click the subscribe button, and then you can keep up to date. And I make loads and loads of videos on parrot care. And if there's something that I haven't made yet and there's something you'd like to see, please leave me a comment below and let me know what you would like me to film. But let's get started. So first up are fumes from barbecues. Now, my neighbours have like the world's smallest barbecue, and yet it looks like the Great Fire of London outside. The whole of our area completely goes up in smoke. And the smoke is really harmful for birds because, as I said in my previous video, birds have a very efficient but sensitive respiratory system, and if they breathe in some of that smoke, they can come into potential respiratory distress. So when that happens, we have to close all the windows. They did it on the hottest day of the year this year as well, which absolutely loved that. But it's really important to try not to expose them to too much of that smoke. So we closed all the windows and we had an air purifier on. I'm going to leave the link below to Amazon for where I got my one. It's really, really good and quite affordable compared to some of the other ones on the market. It's not affiliate or anything, I just really like this air purifier. So if you're looking for one, then I'd recommend going to check that one out. But yes, any kind of smoke, fumes, anything that you can smell, it's probably going to be harmful for birds, so it's just something to bear in mind. If you like to have barbecues at home, I'm not, bashing anyone who likes to have barbecues, but just be really mindful of where your birds are positioned. Try and have them with the doors closed, that kind of thing, in their area, and have them away from that smoke, and then have a purifier or something running so they're not coming into contact with anything that might cause them some harm. So I've put Pickles away quickly because the next one I'm going to show you is a bit scary for Pickles. But one of the other things that can be dangerous to your birds in your household are poisonous and toxic plants and flowers. Now, a lot of people don't realise that some can be incredibly toxic, and actually some are perfectly fine for birds to eat. So it's always good to check multiple lists. I'll leave some in the description for you to go and have a look at, so you can get a full round picture, because some might not be poisonous, but they might still cause digestive upsets. For example, my favourite plant in the house, I have this beautiful aloe vera plant. Now, aloe vera can be fantastic for helping with kind of skin issues, burns, that kind of thing. It's got loads of fantastic medicinal properties to it, all kind of natural, depending on which aloe vera you get, of course, because some could be treated with pesticides, so absolutely throw that out. Not good for you or your birds. But the thing with aloe vera, while it's on a lot of safe lists, there is actually a thin layer between the outer leaf and the good stuff, the sap inside, and that thin layer has been said to cause some digestive and intestinal upsets. So while this is technically safe, if you use the wrong parts, then it might cause some problems. So it's always good to check multiple lists. Now, as well as that, also, as I said, flowers can also cause some digestive upsets. Some of the flowers that are absolutely not safe for your birds include things like hyacinths, peonies, poinsettias, holly, tulips, lots of ones you find in common kind of floral bouquets. They look absolutely beautiful, but unfortunately if your birds eat them, they may come into some problems. But I'm not saying that you can't have them. If you are lucky enough to be treated to a bouquet of flowers with some of the ones that are on the toxic list, just make sure you keep them in a different room in the house. For example, if I was to be treated to a bouquet of flowers, I would keep them either in the kitchen or the bedroom, because it's unlikely that the birds are going to go in there. They spend most of their time in here in the living room. Pickles sometimes comes for a wander with us into the bedroom or the kitchen. She likes to have a wash under the kitchen tap, but I never leave my birds unsupervised around plants that I believe to be unsafe. So use common sense. I know common sense doesn't really feel very common at the moment, but common sense, and check multiple lists and find out which parts of the plants that you have in your home are actually toxic, so you can get a good idea of what is and isn't safe. Next up is air conditioning. Now we don't really have air conditioning in the UK because our summers aren't normally hot enough to need it. However, based on this summer, maybe we should have some because it was unbearable. I know, but air conditioning can sometimes cause problems because if you don't use them for some time, mold can actually build up within the actual unit. So it's always good to periodically just give it a good check and just make sure that there's no mold kind of growing in there that's then been blown around the room and then potentially again causing your bird some respiratory distress. So definitely go and check it out. Again, with a lot of these things that I mention on here, they themselves aren't necessarily the issue, it's how things are being used and maintained. Now leading on from that, another danger could be your heaters or radiators like we have. For some reason with the boys behind me, Chimperfish, they're kind of sleeping somewhere I think, they just know when the radiator's on and they keep like pretending like they're going to land on it, and that's obviously not going to be good for their feet. So again, it's something to be mindful of if your birds are out and about. Just be careful about where they have the opportunity to land. And as well as that, with heaters and things like air conditioning, always make sure that they are not kind of positioned directly in front of your birds and blowing onto your birds, because that constant stream of either air conditioning or a fan or a heater is not going to be beneficial for them, having it blowing on them continuously. They need to have the opportunity to get out of the way if they're too hot or go elsewhere if they're too cool. So yeah, don't have it directly placed in front of them and try not to let them land on anything like heaters and radiators. Next up are the toy fastenings that you use to attach your toys to your bird's cage or play stand, of course. So the ones that are typically sold with bird toys are pair rings and D-rings. I'm hoping the camera's going to focus on that. So pair rings and D-rings. They themselves are not actually dangerous when they're used properly. However, you need to check that when you put your toys in, that they are fully fastened every single day. I've seen so many horror stories recently where either a toy ring has been unfastened by the bird or it's just come unfastened over time, as they can do with, you know, the way that toys are rattled around by parrots, and then this bit can actually get caught through the beak and get caught underneath that fleshy part of the beak under here, and that will need urgent veterinary treatment to make sure that there's no kind of injury or anything like that. So as I said, these are not dangerous in themselves, it's how they're used. There are also kind of acrylic plasticky ones that you kind of pull apart that people use, and they themselves can still cause problems because they're not as easy to get off. They're kind of rigid in one place. So actually trying to get that off the beak is a lot harder than trying to get one of these metal ones off. Some people also use cable ties to attach toys to cages. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you do cut a cable tie short, it can produce quite a sharp edge. So again, be very mindful of that. And also if you're using any kind of rope or twine to attach toys to a cage, just make sure that you are tying it in a way that doesn't produce any kind of loop around where the bird could get stuck. Now I have mentioned fans before, but I wanted to touch on ceiling fans in particular. Again, not something we typically have in the UK, but I have seen a lot of horror stories recently of people who have their ceiling fans on when their birds are out. Whether your birds are clipped or not, they still have the potential to fly around, and they don't always realise what is and isn't a danger. So if your birds are out and about, please do not put your ceiling fans on. It's just too much of a risk. With normal kind of stand-up fans that you have, they often have a safety grate over it. I would say they're fine. My birds haven't personally tried to land on them, but if you just have a look where the blades are in relation to the safety grate, you might be able to see that even if they do land on them, it's not necessarily going to harm them because there's quite a decent gap between many of the blades and the actual safety grate kind of thing. So just have a look at your own personal fans, but yeah, absolutely avoid having your ceiling fans on if you're going to be having your birds out and about in the room. So another danger is cooking. A lot of people have their birds out even when they're cooking. I personally don't. They go home and they have their dinner and then we start cooking our dinner. Now, I know a lot of people want their birds to kind of be involved in food and that kind of thing, and that's absolutely fine. They can enjoy some safe foods with you. However, the actual cooking process can be quite dangerous for loads of different reasons. Now, I've touched upon non-stick cookware, that kind of thing. That's all in my first part of this video, so if you want to learn more about why non-stick cookware is dangerous, it's all in that video there. So I'm not going to be touching on that, but specifically the actual cooking process. So if there's boiling pans of water or hot oil, knives, toxic foods out, these things are going to potentially be a hazard for your bird. So be super careful when you're cooking. Just pop them away for, you know, half an hour, however long it takes for you to cook, just to know with your peace of mind that your bird is going to be safe and not come into contact with these different things in the kitchen. And the final one in today's video is actually introducing new flock members into your home. Now, of course, if you're anything like me, you would love to have loads and loads and loads of birds. We don't actually have the space at the moment, but as soon as we can find a suitable place to move to, we are going to be expanding our flock, which will be very exciting, and I will of course document the journey. But when you bring a new bird into your home and you already have birds in your home, you have to go through some processes to make sure that they stay safe and your old birds are safe as well. So you'll need to quarantine your new bird for at least 30 days. Some people say more, but 30 days is kind of a good all-rounder. And that is to give you an opportunity to see if they're going to exhibit any kind of illness or behavioural issues, so you can get a good grasp on that before they start being introduced fully into your flock. Now that means that they need to be in a separate room, and you need to use kind of separate things to clean and feed them. Don't cross-contaminate, because then the quarantine process is pointless. You also need to have them, as I said, in a separate room, ideally with the door shut, otherwise, you know, they're sharing the same air, and you know, there's loads of airborne diseases, so be really, really careful where you have them in your house. Obviously, if you live in a small place, there's only so much you can do, but try and do as much as you can, as I said, to quarantine them and have them separate from your bird for at least 30 days. Now this does bring me to the end of part 2 of common dangers for pet parrots. I hope you've learned a little bit more about what might be a potential hazard for your bird. I'm not saying wrap your bird in cotton wool, but if you can avoid having them exposed to certain hazards and dangers, then of course why wouldn't you? Because vet bills are expensive, and of course you want your flock members to stay happy, healthy and safe. If you have any questions about anything I've spoken about today, or anything parrot related in general, or you just want to have a chat as well, please leave some comments down below. I would love to speak to you. But from me and Pickles, who is currently biting my ear, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic week. Take care and see you later.